And welcome to the Dr. Bob Show. Are you eating the right type of foods? Do you ever miss breakfast? Does that harm your health? What type of foods are you eating? Are you eating the kinds of foods that will make you healthy? Do you know what a plant-based diet is? Do you know what a vegan diet is? Do you know the advantages of a Mediterranean diet, an Atkins diet, a DASH diet, a Mayo Clinic diet? There are all types of diets, and all of them have different foods to help your health and mind. We'll be answering those questions on the Dr. Bob Show. My guest is Courtney Wright. Courtney Wright is a licensed and registered dietitian, and she's going to be answering our questions on the type of foods that will improve our health. Hello, I'm Dr. Robert Overholt, and I'll be your host for the next 30 minutes on the Dr. Bob Show. Later on, we'll be talking about hardening of the arteries. Are the foods that you're eating contributing to hardening of the arteries? We'll see. A lot of information for you. You'll want to stay tuned. We're talking with Courtney Wright, licensed and registered dietitian. We're going to be learning about foods. What's the best foods for you and the best foods for me, and how do we know if they're good or not? Courtney, welcome to the Dr. Bob Show.
Thank you.
When people come to see a dietitian, what's the main thing they're coming to most of the time?
So dietitians are experts in the field of nutrition. Most of what we see is weight management, concerns over weight.
Yeah, and weight is a huge, huge problem in the United States. Is that because we don't know how to eat, we eat improperly, or we don't exercise enough?
Well, there's a little bit of both. You know, it's tough because the environment we live in, fast food is readily available, people are busy, people need time savers, and we just don't move as much as we used to.
Yeah, every time I watch television, it's got some really... you need a break today, you know, get your fast food, and it makes it easy on people, but it's not necessarily the best type of food, is that right?
No, usually in fast food you will find a lot of fat, a lot of sodium, a lot of added sugars, very few whole grains and fiber. So it's really not the best choice nutritionally, but it is an easy choice oftentimes.
So you're a licensed dietitian and a registered dietitian. What do you have to do to become a registered or licensed dietitian?
So to become a registered dietitian, you have to complete a program for a bachelor's degree. Soon the requirement will be a master's degree.
You have to have a master's degree to be a dietitian.
Yes.
That's a lot of education.
Yes.
Well, what do you learn? Different food types and the nutritional value of foods?
Oh yes, we study vitamins and minerals in foods. We study biochemistry. There's a lot of biochemistry, but also the psychological aspects of eating. Counseling skills are very important to be a dietitian.
What are some big mistakes that you see people make in their eating habits in general? And then I'll give you mine.
So I think the biggest thing that I see is just overeating.
Yeah, and that's what my son, who's a physician, and I were going to write a book. Eat less and exercise more.
Yes.
So the volume that we eat is sometimes too much. Why is that? Is the brain telling you something?
Well, sometimes we eat emotionally. You know, we get bored, we get sad, we eat, and it's not always true hunger. Part of learning to eat healthy is learning to listen to those hunger cues.
Yeah, and sometimes if we start eating too fast, we can put a lot of food down in the stomach before we recognize the mistake that we've made. Let's talk about some different eating patterns. I'm interested in a plant-based diet, and let's call it a diet. Do you like the word diet or not?
I prefer dietary pattern, eating pattern.
Eating pattern.
Because, diet implies I have a list of foods and I have to eat this today and I have to eat this tomorrow, and there are a lot of restrictions. You have a lot more freedom if you can follow a pattern of the types of foods that you want to include.
So is plant-based a good pattern of eating?
Absolutely.
So what's plant-based eating?
So plant-based basically means focused on plants. Plants form the basis of your diet. And there are several different plant-based diets. You can have a vegetarian diet pattern, a vegan diet pattern, even flexitarian, which is based in plants and adds a little bit of meat.
So plant-based, would that be, is bread plant-based?
Yes.
Well, because it would come from wheat then.
Yes.
And vegetables, because you can pluck them out of the ground.
Yes.
What's not a plant-based food?
So meat is not a plant-based food. When you're talking about a vegan diet also avoids animal products. So milk, eggs, those would be excluded on a vegan diet, but allowable usually on a vegetarian diet.
I've seen people that are on vegan diets, and it looks to me like they're trying to be very, very thin with the type of food they eat. Would a vegan diet be a diet that you could lose weight but maintain nutrition?
It could lead to weight loss. You have to be careful. Oreos are vegan, so you can certainly eat unhealthy foods on a vegan diet.
One Oreo shouldn't hurt somebody, but a whole lot of them might be put on too many calories.
Right. But there are some deficiencies that you could develop nutritionally as a result of a vegan diet. The big one, vitamin B12, because animals are our best source of that. Iron is also important to watch, and protein, although there are plenty of good sources of plant-based proteins.
What are some of the plant-based proteins? When I think of protein, I think of a good steak or some chicken or fish would be a good protein. But what plants have high value of protein?
Beans are a powerhouse.
Any certain kind of bean?
Any kind of bean. And there are a wide variety of beans you can eat for protein. Also quinoa. Quinoa is a grain that is very high in protein. Nuts and seeds can also provide good protein.
So there's the way that you can supplement your diet if you need, and do we need protein in our diet?
Yes, we do.
Do we need fat in our diet?
We do.
And do we need carbohydrates?
Yes, we need them all.
Is there a percentage of protein, carbohydrate, and fats that we try and include in our eating pattern?
There's general recommendations. It can vary from person to person, what works for you, what doesn't. But generally, we want to keep fats to about 25 to 30%.
Of your calories?
Yes, of calories. Yeah. Protein actually would be calculated per your weight, but you could in general say about 20%.
Let's go to a breakfast.
Okay.
What's a good breakfast for somebody to eat? Some breakfast that has vitamins, fiber, nutrition. What would be a good breakfast?
So a great breakfast food is Greek yogurt. It's one of my favorites.
Why would Greek yogurt be a nutritional food?
It's very high in protein, and as long as you get one that is plain or you flavor yourself, it's not very high in sugar, so it doesn't add a lot of sugar.
So you get the plain, non-fat Greek yogurt.
Yes.
That's the type my wife looks for,
Yes.
and that's what she buys. And then she puts blueberries and strawberries and different types of fruit in it to make it taste better and be more nutritious.
Yes.
How do you eat yogurt? What do you mix it with? What do you make it taste good?
Well, I definitely add fruit. I will either puree some fruit ahead of time or just add whole fruit in with it. I also like to add some chia seeds.
What type of seeds?
Chia seeds.
Chia seeds?
Yes. They're a good source of omega-3 fatty acids, which are one of those healthy fats. And they also have some added fiber.
Second type of food that you like for breakfast? How about oatmeal?
Oatmeal, yes.
Why is oatmeal good?
Oatmeal's great. It has that fiber word again. It has a lot of fiber. It helps keep you full, and it can promote heart health as well. So that's a great
I think
choice.
it's supposed to help lower cholesterol, and
Yes.
it keeps the fiber and makes our GI tract work better from
Yes.
that standpoint.
Yes.
Is breakfast an important meal?
It is. It is an important meal.
Most important?
Well, that's up for debate, but I would say for me, breakfast is the most important because it does make you feel full. If you eat an adequate breakfast, that starts your day off you're set up so that you won't necessarily snack all day long, you know, if you're feeling full.
I have some people that tell me I just am not hungry, so I skip breakfast. Is that a bad habit?
It's okay as long as it's not promoting that snacking. You can skip breakfast, but have a sensible lunch.
What time, if you eat breakfast at 7, what time should your next meal be?
I usually look for 3 to 4 hours later, so
It'd be 11 or 12,
yeah.
somewhere in there. Are there specific foods that make a good lunch?
One great thing you could have for lunch is start with a salad.
A salad.
Yes.
That's what we're going to be talking about. Why is a salad a good lunch? And what can you do to make a salad a bad thing to eat? We'll be answering those questions. We're talking with Courtney Wright, registered and licensed dietitian, and we've been talking about different types of foods, the nutritional value that they have. We've been talking about breakfast, and then we began to mention the word salad. Why are salads a good food?
Well, salads can set you up for success midday. You start off with some greens, so you're adding a lot of vitamins and minerals there.
So what type of vitamins in general do greens have? And is there any special kind of greens that are more nutritious than others?
So leafy greens such as kale and chard, any kind of beet greens, turnip greens, they tend to be more nutritious than...
Are they bitter?
They can be.
Some of those you mentioned to me would be better. It's bitter. So you put something else in the salad like tomatoes?
Yes.
Where do you get into the dangerous part of salads?
Usually the dressings or cheese is a great topping for a salad, but if you go overboard, you can really amp up the calories.
Yeah, and a lot of times people say when they're trying to lose weight, I go to the salad bar. And the salad bar, by the time you look at it, it's piled up with things that really do not have as good a nutritional value as if you concentrate on the lettuces there.
Yes.
Now, we were talking about breakfast at 7, and we were talking about salads at 11. I get hungry around 10. What's a good snack food? How do you teach people how to snack?
So I would think simple for snack, and I want to get some protein in there to keep you full, to keep you satisfied, and not just make you hungry right away.
Give me an example.
A great snack would be a piece of string cheese and a piece of fruit.
String cheese and a piece of fruit.
That's
so
my
those would go better. Those would go together well. So any kind of fruit and string cheese. And when I've looked at string cheese, there's some yellow kind and there's there's some white kind. Is there a type of string cheese that's better than another?
Well, there are some that are lower in fat than others. That's the big thing to look for.
Do you look for that as a cheese, or you look for a tasty cheese?
Well, it depends. Sometimes I just want a tasty cheese and I want the full fat, but I have to be mindful of the serving size.
And the amount that you're going to eat.
Yes.
What kind of fruits go good with cheese?
Oh, anything. Oranges, pineapple, apples.
Those would be great snacks, you know, and that would really satisfy the different needs of the taste buds that we have. Okay, we've got our snacks. How about something like Triscuits or some type of crackers? Are those good with snacks? Or peanut butter, is that a good snack?
Yeah, I think if you pair those together, it can be a great snack. Try to look for whole grain, whole wheat, or other whole grain crackers, just to get a little extra fiber in there. But yes, peanut butter is a good source of protein. Pairing that with your crackers can help keep you full.
You know, and I think that, to me, peanut butter sticks to my stomach, and
Yes.
so it makes it where I don't get hungry quickly again.
Yes.
So what do I put on my salads?
So think fruits and vegetables are free. So whatever fruits and vegetables you see on the salad bar, you want to put on those. Tomatoes, you want to put, make a fancy salad, put strawberries or blueberries on there. Beets, you can go crazy with the fruits and vegetables.
I may want to come back to beets because it has a great deal of marketing and the value of beets with heart health. What type of dressing do we put on? And does that get to be a problem because dressings can have too much mayonnaise or fat?
It can be, especially if you are looking at bottled dressings. You can make your own dressing at home actually quite easily, just some oil and vinegar, and make a quick dressing that's a little bit healthier and doesn't have as much added salt and sugar.
What type of oil?
I would use olive oil.
So you use olive oil. I hear more about olive oil as the best type of oil to use in cooking. Is that correct?
I think that it's the best type of oil to use, depending on what you're cooking, of course, but it has a lot of applications and it's high in monounsaturated fats.
Monounsaturated fats. I think that's good.
Yes, that is good.
So the kinds that are bad would be polysaturated fats.
Yes.
So what are some sample or examples of the bad type of polysaturated fats? What would that be?
So perhaps like corn oil, maybe some of the hydrogenated oils. Those would be unhealthy. They don't promote heart health, whereas the monounsaturated fats like in olive oil and many plants like nuts and seeds, they do more so promote heart health.
When bacon, that would have fats in it.
Oh, yes.
It would have a lot of fat. You would think that would not necessarily be very good for somebody. Are there processed meats that have poor fat in them?
Yes, bacon, right on the money. Saturated fats. You can look at hot dogs, sausages. A lot of those pre-packaged meats that are highly processed have those saturated and trans fats in them.
And they'll go back and have sodium on them too.
Oh, yes.
Now, you and I were talking about sodium, and when we think of sodium sodium chloride. That's what salt is.
Yes.
If too much sodium was causing blood pressure problems, we wanted to cut down on the sodium. What are some of the substitutes that we could find at the store that would be a salt?
So potassium chloride is a salt substitute.
Easy to find?
You can usually find it at the supermarket.
Yeah, I think it's right next to
with the sodium chloride salt.
Yeah, so you have to look for potassium chloride or a salt substitute. That's going to be potassium chloride.
Right.
So it doesn't have the danger of the sodium part. It gets into a low sodium. Are there low sodium eating patterns like we're going to talk about Mediterranean, but I'm jumping to a DASH diet. What's a DASH diet?
So DASH diet is actually specifically created for hypertension and to help decrease blood pressure.
So the DASH, D-A-S-H, is diet against systolic hypertension. So diet low in salt.
Correct.
How do we know how much salt we're getting in the food we eat?
Well, if it's a packaged food, you can read the back of the package.
So it will tell you that.
Yes.
What is too much salt?
Well, we want to aim for no more than 2,300 milligrams of salt a day. There is actually a more restrictive, low sodium version of the DASH diet
that
caps
12 or
at
1,500?
Yes.
Yeah, and so no added salt. We tell people that don't put the salt shaker on the table.
Yeah.
You may think it makes food tastier, but it can be harmful. So if you just don't add salt, what would a normal breakfast, lunch, supper, how much sodium would you get?
Well, it depends, because are you eating fresh foods or are you eating prepackaged foods? Because that's our number one source of salt in the diet, is those prepackaged foods.
So if you make a sandwich out of prepackaged meat, you're going to find that it's going to have a lot of salt in that. It's a good preservative.
Yes, it is.
And it may make people think that it may even taste better, but it may have some harmful effects.
Yes.
So we're back to our salad. We can make it at home. We can put the vegetables and the fruits on them to make them better and have a simple type of oil and vinegar dressing that we have.
Yes.
Supper?
I would go for any kind of grilled or baked protein. If you're going Mediterranean, fish is a great choice, or shellfish.
So we're going to come back to the Mediterranean diet when we come back. Mediterranean diet probably is the best type of eating pattern for Americans to eat in general. Everything can be varied, but we need to pay attention to a Mediterranean diet. We're going to talk about what's in one and what kind of foods we want to concentrate on. A lot of information in eating. A lot of people say you are what you eat. So be careful on the amount of food that you eat and the quality of the food you eat. And we'll be learning more about that when we come back. We're talking with Courtney Wright, registered and licensed dietitian, and we've been talking about the different types of food patterns that we can eat. And then we were getting to supper, to dinner, to the main meal, to the big meal.
Yes.
Proteins, what do we use?
You could use fish, you could use lean meat, lean red meat, you could use chicken.
So how do you know if the meat is lean or not? You talk to the butcher?
Yeah, that is one way. Another way is that you can actually look at the meat. If you see solid fat on the meat, be sure that it has a lot of saturated fat.
So when we're talking about supper and we're talking about protein and we're talking about fish, chicken, beef, what's the size of protein that we should eat?
Smaller than you think. A deck of cards. So a size of a deck of cards is a serving of meat.
So that's not really very much. Do we feel like we're missing anything if we don't get two decks of cards?
Well, we want to fill up the rest of that plate with vegetables.
Yeah. What type of vegetables do you like?
I like all vegetables. I haven't met one I haven't liked, but I try to get leafy greens in there, and then I try to get other types of vegetables as well.
How about yellow colored vegetables, and how about the green? Should you mix the colors? Like, I'm thinking of squash, I'm thinking of some of the foods. Are there ways to make them taste better?
Sure. Sure, yes. Add, if you're watching salt especially, you can add herbs and different spices. You can use lemon and lime juice to kind of make that taste better.
We've mentioned the Mediterranean diet. You brought with you a book, America's Test Kitchen on the Mediterranean diet. And so I want people to be able to know American Test Kitchen Mediterranean diet. Has lots of good pictures of food to eat. Tell me about the Mediterranean diet. What is that and why is it considered so good?
So it's a focus on plants, like we've been talking about, fruits, vegetables. There's an emphasis on plant proteins such as beans and lentils, things like that. And it's low in red meat. It's only eaten sparingly. It is high in healthy fats, like those from plants, and the olive oil we discussed earlier.
So if you were to cook supper for me and we wanted Mediterranean style, what would be on the plate? So
I would do a grilled fish. I would also do a salad, maybe perhaps with some rainbow chard, and then some olive oil on that. I would also do some kind of side dish, maybe quinoa. Would be a good high protein starch, but it's also a whole grain and has a lot of fiber in it.
So how do you teach me how much to eat? You've got big bowls and you've got mama bowls and baby bowls. How much should people be eating?
That's tough for a lot of people. One way is to look at the package. If it's a packaged food, you can usually see the serving size there. You can also find resources online that show visuals, such as a serving of rice, about a third of a cup. That's the size of my fist.
Brown rice, white rice?
I would go with brown rice.
Why?
More fiber.
Okay, so it's a more nutritious type of rice.
Yes.
Are the success rices and the bin rice, are they pretty much the same?
You can get the white rice, but I would go for the brown rice.
I love to put rice with food, and really to me they taste about the same, white and brown from that standpoint. Tips of the trade in order to teach somebody how to eat properly.
So I would say the first and foremost, pay attention to what you're eating. That's the biggest thing, because I think so many times how we get in trouble is just eating mindlessly. That's where our portions get out of control. That's where the types of foods that we're eating aren't so healthy. So pay attention to what you're eating. And when you do choose something that's a little unhealthy, per se, cake, enjoy it. Eat a regular portion and enjoy it instead of just mindlessly eating.
I think that's a great statement. If you're going to eat some foods that are not the healthiest, enjoy that food, but eat less of it, and don't eat it again tomorrow too quickly.
Yes.
Courtney, you've been a wonderful teacher, and I want to thank you so much for coming to the Dr. Bob Show. There's so much more on nutrition that you and I could talk all day and learn this, but thank you for coming to the Dr. Bob Show, teaching us the different types of foods that we can eat, eating the plant-based foods and eating good foods and less of those, and enjoying the food that you eat.
Yes.
You've been a great teacher.
Thank you.
And now that's all the time that we have for this show. Remember those 4 things that we always like. Number 1 is exercise. Be sure that you're exercising 5, 6, 7 days a week. Be sure that you're exercising 20, 30, 40 minutes that period of time. Get 7.5 hours sleep. It'll make you feel better and the people around you better. Always get your 7.5 hours sleep, eat nutrition, and most of all, what do we like in the Dr. Bob Show? It's that laughter in your life. Laugh a lot and you'll stay healthy. Enjoy yourself.